Hello, and welcome to the TA webinar, Ebooks and Overview, presented by Joshua Talent. Joshua has been an ebook developer since 2002. He is an acknowledged expert on the Kindle and EPUB formats, and his book, Kindle Formatting, The Complete Guide, has been appraised as the most thorough explanation of the Kindle format available. Joshua founded Ebook Architects, his ebook design and consulting business, in 2008, providing services to both publishers and authors with a focus on complex projects and enhanced ebooks. He regularly teaches at conferences and workshops about building and designing ebooks, and he is a vocal advocate for accessible, well-designed ebooks. He can be found online at www.ebookarchitects.com and on Twitter at jtalent or at ebookarchitects. Joshua is also a panelist for the 2011 TA Conference presentation, Indexing and E-Booking Issues for Textbooks and Academic Books. He will be answering questions at the end of his presentation. Type your question into the control box on your screen, and I will be taking questions at the end. And I now turn the session over to Joshua.
All right. Thank you very much. So can everybody hear me okay?
Yep, I can hear you.
Very good. All right. So we're going to launch right in here. I just wanted to jump in and say thank you very much for the opportunity. I'm really looking forward to speaking at the TA conference coming up, and hope that all of you who are here in the session are also going to be there as well. So first of all, just a little bit of introduction about myself. We already did that, and so the purpose of this session is to go through an overview of the ebook world. We're going to talk about the most popular devices and formats and the most popular retailers that are out there. Kind of give you a good overview of how things work. Whether you're an author or publisher, whether you're however you're working inside the ebook world or how you're trying to approach it. Hopefully this will give you enough of an introduction to make you feel comfortable talking to other people about it and starting your own processes and getting into the beginnings of your of engaging the world that's changing very rapidly. So start off here with some ebook formats. There are basically two ebook formats on the market. There's the Kindle format and the EPUB format. Now Kindle is Amazon only. EPUB is actually used by all the other retailers. And there's some older formats that we'll kind of briefly touch on as well. But basically, these two formats are the two that are most used across the ebook landscape. So talking about Kindle first, Amazon has this very unique format. It's been around since the late 90s. It's actually was created by a company called MobiPocket back in the late 90s, and was one of the most popular ebook formats back then among early adopters, people who had ebooks on their PDAs. This was before smartphones. This was way back in the Palm Pilot days. So there were some people who were actually buying ebooks and reading ebooks back then. Behind the scenes, the Kindle format, the MobiPocket format, is just HTML3. It's really, really basic HTML. It hasn't really changed that much in the last 10 years. There are some proprietary code pieces as well. It's all compiled together into a single package, and you can see sometimes on different websites you'll hear about PRC or Mobi or AZW files. It's all the same thing, regardless of whether you buy a file from Amazon or somebody else. The file itself is exactly the same thing. The only difference might be how the DRM is being applied to your device, whether you have a Kindle or some other device. And so the files that you purchase from other websites might not have the ability to be read on your Kindle if the DRM is different. The strengths of the Kindle format are really mostly its popularity. A lot of people know Amazon for purchasing ebooks, for buying ebooks, so they are very familiar with the Amazon systems, and they start buying ebooks from Amazon because they buy print books from Amazon. So Amazon sells according to most people, 60 to 70% of ebooks right now. And that's a lot. They definitely have a corner in the market. There are a couple of other companies like Barnes & Noble and Apple that are giving them a little bit of a run for their money. But for the most part, it's very popular. The Kindle format also has very simple layout. That's a strength in a lot of ways because it allows most of the books that are in the Kindle library to look very similar to each other, and people can get comfortable with an ebook and not have to worry about this one has this weird formatting here, or this has this weird formatting over there. Every book looks very similar and has a lot of the same basic features, and so that's good for consumers. It's very accessible to non-techies. You could create your own Kindle ebook file if you take a little bit of time and know what you're doing, have the right resources available to you. Sorry, my Twitter keeps popping up here. Let me take care of that. Exit out of that real quick. There we go. The weaknesses of the Kindle format are really, first of all, that it's proprietary. It is only used and owned by Amazon. It's not something that you actually can buy on other websites for the most part. There's some websites that sell MobiPocket files, but a lot of times that doesn't work well on your Kindle. You have to have the older MobiPocket software, and it's kind of legacy stuff. And the simple layout is also a weakness of the Kindle format. It's not nearly as good as the EPUB format when it comes to displaying complex content, even doing things like sidebars and borders and pull quotes and stuff like that is a little more complex in layout. It's very difficult to do that stuff in the Kindle format. You can open the files up on a lot of different devices. Amazon has the Kindle 1, 2, and 3 and the Kindle DX. Those are the devices that they sell. Also, if you have any kind of the major smartphones, whether it's an iPhone or a BlackBerry or Android phone, Windows Phone 7, all of those devices have applications that Amazon has released that you can put your Kindle books into. And this actually is one of the greatest features of the Kindle system. It's the Whisper Sync technology, where if you purchase a book from Amazon in the Kindle format, you're able to put that on any device you want. And whenever you open up a file in the Kindle, let's say you have a Kindle device and you also have Kindle on your iPhone, if you're reading on your Kindle at home, and then on the way to work you pull out your iPhone and you go to open up that book in the Kindle platform, it'll say, hey, you stopped on page whatever in your on your Kindle. Do you want to go start from that, reading it from that place when you're on your iPhone? And that Whisper Sync technology that keeps everything in sync, all of your notes and comments and highlights and stuff are all synced up between the different devices. It's a very good feature. It's one of the major features that Amazon came out with at the very beginning that gave them a bump in the industry. The Kindle format can be obtained. You can buy Kindle books on the Amazon website at mobipocket.com. Some of the other smaller ebook retailers as well will let you purchase Kindle books or actually MobiPocket books. Again, the big question is how do you put that on your device? The DRM on the Kindle platform is proprietary, and the Amazon Kindle, while it uses the same DRM as MobiPocket, it doesn't. The way it works isn't compatible with most books that are purchased from other retailers besides Amazon.com. So if you're buying a DRMD book from MobiPocket.com or Books on Board or something, you probably won't be able to put that onto your Kindle because Amazon wants you to buy the books directly from them. Some really key resources here if you're planning to build or look at more information on building Kindle ebooks. I wrote a book called Kindle Formatting: The Complete Guide. You can get it at kindleformatting.com/book in ebook and in print. And the Kindle Gen and Kindle Previewer programs are two of the key resources that you'll need when you're building Kindle books. So definitely check those out at Amazon's website. And there's a link here as well for the Kindle applications. Whether you're iPhone, iPad, BlackBerry, whatever, you can go and download those to your phone or to your other device so that you can take a look at the Kindle books on those devices. So moving on to the EPUB format. EPUB is the industry standard format. It's maintained by an organization called the International Digital Publishing Forum. The IDPF is a nonprofit organization. Their whole mission is to maintain the format and ensure that the EPUB is a standard that can be used and is used by all the different retailers and devices. Behind the scenes of the current EPUB format, it's basically web-type technologies. It's XHTML, which is the same kind of HTML you would see on most websites. It's CSS2, which is style sheets that allow the website to allow the document to be designed and look nice. XML. There's a couple of XML files back there. It's all wrapped up in a zip. It's actually a very simple format to comprehend once you get past some of the acronyms of XML and OPF and this kind of stuff. A lot of people kind of shut down at that point. But when you get down to it, it's a very basic format to get into and understand. Has some really good strengths. One of the biggest strengths is that it is an open source standard. If you're a publisher or someone who's interested in joining with the IDPF and working on the technology, you can actually be on working groups and standards committees and help come up with the next versions of the standards. And it's a really great opportunity for people to be involved. And and unlike a proprietary format that you have no control over, you can have a voice in the process of creating new formats and new standards for EPUB. It's also based on modern technologies. The Kindle format is so old that a lot of the things we want to be able to do in it, we just can't because the format doesn't support it. But EPUB, because it's based on XHTML and CSS and has a lot more robust capabilities in formatting, we're able to do a lot more, and the modern technologies make a big difference in that. It has very broad industry support. The IDPF membership list is very long and has a lot of there's a lot of members of the IDPF that you would recognize very quickly, like Apple and Adobe. There's very wide consumer acceptance. Anybody who purchases an ebook besides people who buy from Amazon, you're pretty much buying in the EPUB format. If you buy books from Barnes & Noble or Sony, from Kobo, most of the other retailers are using EPUB, so it's very easy for people to see that it is a very good standard. Again, very robust formatting. You can do things like pull quotes and all these different types of drop caps and stuff like that. You can do all of that in the EPUB format. It does have some limitations, but it's definitely much better than Kindle in that way. And there's also, again, active development. We're currently, the working group is working on the next version of EPUB, EPUB 3, which we'll talk about here in just a moment, that's coming out next month, actually. The weaknesses of the format, multiple rendering engines, multiple software applications that read EPUB files. They offer different levels of support for the standard. So in some cases, your book may look completely different in one place than it does in another. And that can be a really big challenge when you're trying to build an EPUB file that can look good on any device that someone puts it on. Thankfully, we're kind of narrowing the field a little bit. We're mostly down to the majority of ebook reading systems are either using WebKit, which is the browser technology that's used on the iPad and the Android systems, or they're using the Adobe system. Adobe has its own display engine for EPUB files, and so most of the programs or devices that are out there are using one or the other, so it makes it a little bit easier for designing, but it is still kind of an issue. There's not HTML5 support yet. That's coming in EPUB 3, the next version that'll be released next month. So the newer standards. Again, there's newer technologies in the web world that are coming out all the time. Lots of things changing, and EPUB has been slower to adapt in the last couple of years than it probably should have. But that is changing quickly now. There aren't any really good development tools. A lot of the building of EPUB files that happens with publishers or design houses like us, it has to either be proprietary systems like we've built, we build a lot of tools that help us develop ebooks here in-house, or it has to be a lot of hacking and kind of moving things around and doing things that using tools like InDesign that are not really made for really creating good ebooks, but they'll do a fair decent job if you force them to act the way they're supposed to. There's also a lot of misinformation about EPUB and how EPUB works and how the format's supposed to work, and I think that that's one of the biggest weaknesses of the EPUB format is that people don't really recognize what's going on behind the scenes. And another issue is the competing DRM standards. Because every retailer wants to have control over who reads their books, and wants people that, just like Amazon, they want people to come to their website and purchase ebooks. There are some pretty big issues with the DRM. So right now, there's two forms of DRM that are used on most EPUB files when you buy it from a retailer. Apple has their Fairplay DRM, which is only used by them. So if you buy an EPUB file from Apple's iBook store to put it on your iPad or iPhone, you'll actually, if it's DRM'd, it'll be locked down. There's no way you could possibly get that file and put it on another device like a Nook or a Sony Reader. Sony and Nook both use the Adobe Content Server 4 software, which is actually used by Kobo and a bunch of European retailers as well. The problem with the Adobe Content Server 4 technology is that even though it is standardized as a DRM system and is being used by all these different retailers, the retailers have implemented it in ways that don't make it possible. They make it impossible for you to copy files. If you purchase a file from, say, Barnes & Noble, it's very difficult to put that file on your Sony reader. Even though they're using the same DRM, the same standard, they're not actually, they're doing it in different ways and supporting different forms of the standard, so it creates interoperability issues. So this is a big issue. Hopefully in the near future we'll see the ebook world either go the way of the music world and just get rid of DRM altogether, or go to a more standardized system where someone who purchases an ebook from one place will be able to load that on any device they have, regardless of where they purchased it. EPUB files can be created again in InDesign CS4 or CS5. I didn't put CS5 on this slide here, but basically the latest versions of InDesign will create EPUB files. They're not very good. There's lots of limitations in what they look like. So if you're going that route, it's recommended that I recommend that you come up with a workflow that includes opening up the EPUB file, fixing the issues that InDesign doesn't do properly, and then rebuilding it. A lot of the work, again, has to be done manually or with proprietary scripts that you write yourself, programs you write yourself. There is a program called Caliper. A lot of people swear by Caliper, but it's not really good for professional ebooks. It is it's good for consumers. If you're a consumer and you just want to maintain a library of ebooks, ebook files on your computer, especially if you have lots of public domain books that are not DRM'd, then it's very good, easy to use Caliper and make it. Let it help you move your files around and keep them all in one place. But it's not for professional ebooks. I don't suggest using it to develop the ebooks professionally. There's also a bunch of other tools and capabilities out there. There's one set of tools called EPUB tools, which is a bunch of Python scripts that will convert from XML formats like DocBook into EPUB. So if you're a techie and you know what all that meant, then you can go find EPUB tools on Google Code. You can buy EPUB files on a variety of different devices, put them on a variety of different devices here, like Adobe Digital Editions, or the Nook Color, the iPad, the Sony Reader, and a bunch of other devices that are mostly used in Europe and other places in the world that you may not see very often here in the U.S. You can buy the files at the iBook Store, Apple iBook Store, the Sony Store, Barnes & Noble's Nook Store, FictionWise, All Romance, and a bunch of different places. And you'll want to check out, if you're a purchaser of ebooks, you definitely want to look at all of these and see which ones work for you. Because some of them will have more specialized or more specific lists of books or focus on different genres that you might be interested in. The key resources you should know about for the EPUB format. The IDPF's website is very important, has lots of information. And if you're a publisher and you want to join the IDPF, you can go there to find out about how to do that. If you're building EPUB files and you want to create a workflow from InDesign, there was an Adobe Max tutorial session in 2009 that covers that fairly well. So you can go to that tiny URL link. And from what I understand, most of these links will also be put up on the TA website as well, so you can go to the website and take a look at them. Adobe Digital Editions is the standard way of opening up EPUB files on either Mac or PC. So you can go and download. It's a free download from Adobe. And Adobe has a guide to best practices. It's a PDF file that kind of goes through, what they suggest when you're building EPUB files. So you can go and download that as well. EPUB 3 is the next version of EPUB format. It will be released next month in May. It has a lot of really important changes being added and changed in the EPUB format. One of the biggest ones is oral renditions and media overlays, which basically means that an EPUB file can be linked up with narration, like if you have an audiobook and you want to have the ability for someone to listen to the book being read while they're reading it, you can actually do that linking between the two files. There's also a new navigation structure that allows for different types of navigation. We're now switching to HTML5, which is the latest version of HTML that's being used on a lot of websites and being pushed by companies like Google and Apple. Interactivity is a lot better. Your capability for possibly even doing some scripting like JavaScript like you would see on a website, to let you interact more with the content as a reader and engage things like, whether that's moving things around on the page yourself, or whether that means doing things like taking a test and getting automatic feedback on your on the quiz that you took. Global language support, it's a big issue right now in EPUB, and it'll be fixed in EPUB 3. There's going to be a lot of countries around the world that are using EPUB that are having issues with getting Chinese and Hebrew and Arabic and things like that to work properly. But with the language support updates that are coming in EPUB 3, it's going to be a lot better. Also, accessibility. One of the biggest things we've seen in the ebook world is that people with vision impairments or people who are blind like ebooks a lot because they can have them. There's standards like the DAISY standard that have been used to make it much easier for someone with those impairments to be able to read books that they want to read. And EPUB 3 is actually going to combine DAISY and EPUB together in a way that makes a lot of sense, and accessibility is going to be a lot better for the future. I will say, just on this EPUB 3 issue, the release date for the specification is going to be in May, but we're not sure exactly how quickly it'll be adopted by the different reading systems or devices. So you may see Apple come out with an update to their iBooks platform within a month or two of May, after they get everything updated and they're actually able to support EPUB 3. And it may take some of the other retailers or like Adobe and how the Adobe system works with Barnes & Noble and Sony and stuff. It may take a little while before all of that actually works. And so maybe close to the end of the year before we actually see EPUB 3 having broad support, and we start actually seeing EPUB 3 files in the wild, as they say. Lots of ebook devices out there. We're going to cover kind of a brief overview of the ones that are the most popular. Obviously, the Kindle 3 is one of the most popular, if not the most popular, ebook device on the market. It has a 6-inch screen, 120 megabytes of RAM, 4 gigs of storage. It's a really good device. It has Wi-Fi capabilities, or 3G if you're out and about a whole bunch and not able to use Wi-Fi as much. Again, you can sync your books with other devices. It's a very low-priced device, but very good quality, and it really does feel good in your hands and work really well. The Kindle DX is the large screen version of the Kindle 3. This is actually the one that you're looking at, is the Kindle DX 2, essentially. It's a good device. It has a lot of good capabilities, and I think the best approach here to using the Kindle DX is if you're in an environment where you have lots of PDFs that you need to be able to put onto things or something like that. It's a very easy way to read large screen content like that. Or if you just need a bigger screen so you can have more text on it. It's definitely a good device to have. The Barnes & Noble Nook is a very popular reader. They actually they just recently announced that they're not going to be selling this anymore as a 3G access, only as Wi-Fi. But it is an e-ink screen. It has a little LCD screen down at the bottom. Personally, I don't think this works as well as the Kindle. The navigation on that little LCD screen is a little difficult to deal with. But as far as the general overview, general specs, it is a pretty good device, and it's very, very similar to the Kindle itself. Barnes & Noble also has the Nook Color, which is pretty much the only available, broadly available in the U.S. At least, color ebook device, dedicated ebook device. Now, it runs on Android, and there's a development program that will let you, you can go in now and actually download applications onto the device, and so it runs a little bit like an Android tablet would, but at the same time, it also is not a tablet. The interface is all the Barnes & Noble system. It's very good for children's books and for magazines, so it's one of the things that Barnes & Noble's been pushing is those specific content. It's a good device, $250 too, so it's not too difficult to warrant getting it if you're looking for a good color screen device. The Sony Pocket Edition, the PRS 350, this is the smallest of the 3 Sony devices. It's only a 5-inch screen, so it's smaller than the Kindle and Nook, and so it's very, very minimal. It's a very cheap device. But it's actually more expensive than the Kindle is. So as far as devices are concerned, all of the Sony devices are more expensive. The Sony Touch Edition, this is the kind of the mid-range version, and the same size screen as the Kindle and the Nook, and doesn't have Wi-Fi or 3G. It does have a touchscreen, but some people have concerns about the touchscreens on the Sony devices. Basically it's a decent device, but again, it's more expensive than the other two. And the Sony Daily Edition is the larger screen version. It's only 7.1 inches, but they changed the aspect ratio so it's taller, and they kind of tout this as being a good device to read if you're reading newspaper content a lot every morning or something. They tout this as a good device for that. The Kobo Reader. Kobo is a Canadian ebook retailer that's actually a subsidiary or started off by a company called Indigo, which is kind of like Amazon of Canada in a sense, that kind of company up there in Canada. Kobo is a decent device. It's actually a fairly cheap device as far as quality is concerned, but as far as ebooks are it's pretty good. It's got a decent ebook software. It uses the Adobe DRM, and they have a pretty good selection of books in the Kobo store as well. The Apple iPhone and iPod Touch are obviously not dedicated ebook devices, but they are used by a lot of different people for reading ebooks. And we'll talk just in a moment here about some applications you install on those devices. The Apple iPad, again, not a dedicated device, but Apple is really pushing the iBooks platform, trying to get more people to purchase books in the EPUB format from iBooks. As far as the capabilities of EPUB, there's actually, if you're building an EPUB file for iBooks specifically, it is definitely a better, you can do a lot more functionality-wise and formatting-wise. The Android devices that are out there, you see on here the Samsung Galaxy Tab over on the left, the Motorola Droid, and the HTC Nexus 1. There's a whole bunch of Android devices. Android is actually an extremely popular software system, operating system. And there's more of these tablets coming out all the time. I was looking at one the other day. It's a ViewSonic that's available for $300. It's a really good quality dual-core system. I mean, it's definitely, Android is becoming much more popular. And I think that we'll see more and more software applications that read ebooks on these Android devices. Lots of other devices around the world that can support ebook files of different types. So you can read an ebook on just about anything that's mobile nowadays. There are a variety of different applications, ebook applications out there. Adobe Digital Editions is available for Mac and PC. It's a free download. It is the standard way of viewing ebook files on a device, on a computer. And it also allows library management, so you can handle your ebook transfers between the Nook and the Sony Reader, because it's using Adobe's DRM, you can read your DRM EPUBs here. Bluefire Reader is my favorite reader on the iPad and iPhone, and pretty soon they'll be coming out with an Android version of it as well. Reads EPUB files. It does read the Adobe DRM files. That also means that it allows you to check out library books from most public libraries, which use also the Adobe DRM. And it allows you to sync your books. If you have some regular books, you can put them into Bluefire using the iTunes side-loading capabilities. Stanza is a very well-known and very popular ebook reading software on the iPad and iPhone. It's not hasn't been updated in a while because it was purchased. The company was purchased by Amazon in 2009, and essentially they haven't done any development on the product since then. It does have a lot of control over formatting. It lets you as a user control all of the settings, whether that's margins on the page or coloring and everything else, and you have a lot more control in Stanza than you do in other devices or software. The Nook app is available on the iPad, iPhone, Android, and PC. There's a bunch of different books you can buy, of course, from Barnes & Noble, and this is how you can connect to them, just like you can on your Nook. iBooks is, again, Apple's platform for selling EPUB files, and it supports audio and video, which are not capable in the other platforms at the moment, at least not for those of us who aren't working for the major publishers or working for Barnes & Noble directly. iBooks is a good platform. It's got a lot of capabilities in formatting that no one else does right now. but it is, again, it's locked down with the Apple FairPlay DRM. If you're selling books with DRM on their system, then you can't put that same book anywhere else. There are lots of Kindle applications. Again, you can put them on just about any device you want. The Kobo app is available also on most of these devices. And you're noticing a pattern, I hope, that most of the retailers want you to buy a book from them and be able to read it anywhere. And so they're copying the Amazon system, trying to put their applications out on any device, regardless of where it is. Aldico, if you're on the Android operating system, if you have an Android phone or tablet, Aldico is a really good ebook device, ebook reading software. It's been the longest standing. They came out with the first real EPUB reading software on the Android a long time ago. It's still missing some things, but it does support a lot of the features like embedded fonts that you really want to have inside an ebook. Moving on to ebook retailers, there's lots of retailers out there. Most of them are very small and struggling a lot to stay right up there with the big boys in the space. We're going to talk about retailers basically, mostly from the standpoint of who, if you're an author or a publisher, who can you go and put your books up on, less than from a consumer standpoint right now. Amazon.com sells the Mobi Pocket or Kindle format. They also have a format called Topaz, which is super secret. Only Amazon can create those files. But for those of us who create ebook files, the Kindle format or the Mobi Pocket format is very straightforward. Whether you're an author or a publisher, you can submit content to Amazon. They give royalty of either 70% or 35% of your list price. You get to choose which one you do based on the price point that you're putting up there and some other options. And your purchased books can be read on any Kindle device or application. There's lots of opportunity here, and Amazon has a really good site for selling ebooks. They have really good capabilities for categorization and stuff like that. It's very well liked by consumers. The Apple iBook Store only sells EPUB, and it is open to authors and publishers. You can get to the iBook Store through a variety of different places. You can go directly to Apple if you want, but usually it's better to go to a company like BookBaby or possibly Lulu and use them as an aggregator to get your content into the iBook Store. Apple sells your books and gives you a 70% revenue based on your list price. And again, some formatting enhancement options are quite enticing for iBooks. And we actually have some good information about those enhancements options on our website, talking about video and audio and embedded PDFs and stuff like that. Barnes & Noble, the Nook store, does sell the EPUB format. Anyone that uses the Puppet system can sell their EPUB files through Barnes & Noble. It's very much like the Kindle system. The royalties are, again, very similar to Amazon, 65 or 40% of your list price. And your purchased books can be read on any of the devices or applications. The big problem that I have about this is the Nook book format naming. Basically, if you go to Barnes & Noble's website, they say you can buy this in the Nook book format, and that's kind of confusing to consumers. If you buy a book from somebody in the EPUB format, it should say this is an EPUB file. Barnes & Noble's not doing that. Kobo is again the ebook retailer from Canada. They sell EPUB, they sell PDF, and they also do online stuff as well. You have to be a publisher to submit to them. They really don't want to work with anybody who has less than 10 or 15 titles at least. You get a 50% royalty, and they have, again, like Barnes & Noble and Amazon, they have apps on a variety of different devices. Sony's e-reader store is only for publishers. Again, it's you have to have 10 or more titles. Authors can get their books in the Sony Reader Store using Smashwords. You can also get it up there using BookBaby. I usually suggest using BookBaby over Smashwords because you can upload your own EPUB file instead of letting Smashwords do an automated conversion for you. Don't know anything about the royalties for that, and you'll have to contact Sony directly to get a contract and work with them on that. Google Editions is Google's new ebook store that launched earlier this year. EPUB and PDF files are what they have available, and if you're an author or a publisher, you can put your content up there for sale. Now, the royalties are 52% if someone buys it from Google, 45% if they buy it from one of the retailers that Google works with, and they can be bought from a variety of different independent bookstores who are now using the Google Books system to sell ebooks on their own websites. If you're familiar with PAL Books up in the Northwest U.S., that's a very common system for PALs. Books on Board is the largest independent ebook retailer. They're actually based here in Austin, Texas, with us. They're great people. They sell EPUB, PDF, a lot of the older formats and stuff as well. They are open to authors and publishers, but you do have to have at least 10 titles to work with them. The royalties they give are 50% of list price, and they do have catalogs available in Stanza, and they accept content from Ingram and Lightning Source from that distribution system. Smashwords is an ebook retailer that has garnered a lot of interest in the last couple of years. Basically, what Smashwords does is they'll take a Word document from you and run it through what they call the meat grinder. The meat grinder is an automated conversion process that will take your Word document, convert it into EPUB and Kindle and a variety of other formats. It can really do a number on your books, though, so you have to be really careful. If you follow the style guide and you have a fiction title, it might turn out okay, but it is definitely difficult to do, so I do suggest to people that you be very careful about using their system. They do distribution into a variety of different places like Apple, Sony, Barnes & Noble, and Kobo, but again, be aware that the quality of your book may not be as good as an EPUB that you build yourself or that you have someone else build directly. Lots of other ebook retailers out there that you can go and talk to. Most of them will only work with publishers who have a lot of books or with distribution systems like Ingram, because they don't have the capacity to handle individual authors. So that's the essence of the ebook world. Kind of covered the whole broad range here, and I think we're going to be good to talk about basically anything that you guys have, any questions you have on ebooks. I'm happy to answer.
Thank you, Joshua. Thank you, Joshua. We do have questions. The first one is, what does DRM stand for, and what is it?
DRM is Digital Rights Management. It is the way that files are locked down. If you have an electronic file, whether that's an e-book or a music file or something else, the DRM is a digital rights management software that maintains an encryption on that file, so someone can't just take the file, copy it, give it to all their friends. It basically locks the file down to be used only with their software on their device.
All right, thank you. The next question is, do you foresee a double screen device on which academic e-texts can be displayed, read, notated, hot linked, etc.? Will this come from big publishers or from device manufacturers, and what are the cost issues involved in this development?
There are actually already some dual screen devices. The best one that I've seen is called the Entourage Edge. It has an e-ink screen on one side and an LCD screen on the other, and it is specifically geared toward the academic market, towards students. Great thing about the Entourage Edge is you can flip it around either direction. And in addition to having to open up like a book, you could actually fold it backwards and then just use the LCD screen or just use the e-ink screen. And the value of e-ink is really the quality of the battery life. You actually get a lot better battery life when using e-ink. So, and then as you're reading through a book, let's say you're reading a book in class or you're reading one of your books for a class, you can tap and have an image or a video or something else like that open up on the LCD screen on the other side and play or be viewed over there. So it's definitely a lot of good interaction. It's got touchscreen capabilities with pen, so you can write annotations and stuff. There are other devices out there that do that. There's a lot of people talking about using ebooks more in the academic space, and so keep your eyes open because I think there's going to be even more of that coming out in the next year or two.
For textbook ebook authors, what capabilities should we get excited about over the next several years?
EPUB 3 has a lot of things coming that are going to be really good for academic marketing for the textbook market. Interactivity inside books is really important when you're dealing with academic market. So you want to make sure that you're keeping an eye out for how JavaScript is being used and supported by the different devices and software. I would say that you want to be cautious about being too picky about formatting, even in the future. Even with EPUB 3, there are still limitations across the board about how an ebook will look and can look in a device. And so while in the academic market it's very common to spend a lot of time on print design and making sure that everything looks exactly right, it's not necessarily the same way in ebooks. The reflowable content and things like that, since it's not PDF or print, things are going to be a little different than that. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of good things coming down the line. I think the interacting capabilities and things like that are going to be really important in that space. And also, being able to play video and audio and engage more enhanced content is also going to be a big deal.
All right, next question. Do you need to purchase ISBN numbers for ebooks?
Yes. The official statement of the International ISBN Agency is that you have to have a different ISBN for any version of a book, whether that's a hardback and softback, or whether it's an EPUB file, a Kindle file. If you wanted to have a different, let's say you had an old .lit format or something, or a PDF that you sell somewhere online. Every format of the book has to have its own unique ISBN. Now, that's the official statement of the ISBN agency. That's not exactly how it runs and how it works in the real world, as with most things. In the ebook retailers out there currently, Apple and Google both require that the EPUB you upload to them have its own ISBN number. The Kindle system does not. Amazon doesn't care if the book has an ISBN or not. I usually suggest to people that you assign one ISBN to your EPUB file, upload that to any place you want, and use that ISBN for that. And if you want to assign an ISBN to your Kindle, then you can do that, but usually you don't have to. Just leave it out altogether. You can also, if you want, assign ISBNs to different retailers. You would have to create different EPUB files for each retailer to do that.
How is the quality of rendering photographs and complex drawings coming along?
It's actually pretty good across the board. There are obviously some devices that don't do as well as others, but most devices, even Kindle and Nook, with their grayscale screens, are doing a fairly good job of displaying content. The good thing about this, too, is that because the retailers are aware of the fact that people read on a variety of devices, you can put really complex stuff into your ebook file, and someone can go and say, let's say they have a Kindle device, and they say, I just can't, I want to be able to read this, or I want to be able to see this drawing with its color because the color is important. They can just load it up onto their computer, or put it on their phone, or put it on an iPad, or something like that. So they can actually read it on more places than just the Kindle itself. And that's an important feature. I think that we'll see more complexity coming through. A lot of people ask about color and whether or not color can be used in ebooks, and it can. Even though the device is, the Kindle or the Nook is a black and white screen or grayscale screen, the Kindle system itself doesn't require black and white images. And actually, if you have color images or even color text, I always recommend putting that into your ebooks so that someone who's reading the book on a different device will be able to take advantage of that.
Okay, if you were a textbook author, what royalty rate would you consider fair for an ebook version of the text?
That depends on how you're selling your textbook. Are you self-publishing a textbook, or are you selling it to a publisher? Publisher royalty rates are all over the place right now. There's a lot of really interesting things happening in that space. A lot of concern about how much authors are getting paid by publishers, whether or not it's textbooks. I would suggest you talk to your publisher if you have a publisher and you're working with them, and find out what their royalty rates are before you start the project, and maybe make that part of your contract to ensure that you receive a larger rate. A lot of publishers are giving 25% of ebook sale royalties of ebook sales. Some are giving 50%, and again, it depends on the publisher and the plans that they have, the work that they do on stuff.
What about Nook's new educational version that connects directly into Blackboard, supports textbook and instructor needs?
It is proprietary, and that's my main concern with it. You have to go through Barnes & Noble directly to get any kind of access to it. You can't create the files yourself. It's not a standard EPUB. And that causes lots of concerns for me because, when you're looking at the ebook market, you as a publisher or an author, you should have control over your own intellectual property. And I'm really concerned when people say, well, we're going to go with, we're going to let Amazon convert our book for us into Kindle. Because when it's done, Amazon does its thing, and you don't have control over that. And the same thing for Barnes & Noble. They do the same thing with the Nook Kids. If you have a children's book and you want to create a Nook Kids book, you have to give it to Barnes & Noble. And it also limits access to that. If you're an independent author or a small publisher who doesn't have a lot of resources and doesn't have those connections necessarily to Barnes & Noble or to their back end, it can create issues for you in being able to get your content out there into the systems that everybody else is trying to take access to as well. So I'm a big proponent of open systems, and I don't think that the Barnes & Noble system will ever be as open as standard EPUB device development is.
All right, thank you. Do you suggest PDF for highly mathematical author-generated text?
I don't suggest PDF for anything because PDF is not an ebook. That's actually a misunderstanding about the ebook world that a lot of people have is that, oh, I can just sell a PDF. Well, you could, but you can only sell a PDF on your own website. None of the major retailers are selling PDF files. They're only selling EPUB and Kindle. So if you have mathematical content, it is very difficult to get into ebook formats. Currently, because of limitations of EPUB, you basically have to put images in if you have complex mathematical equations in your book. However, that's changing. EPUB 3 that's coming out next month is going to have support for MathML, which is an XML standard that allows you to display math content as text instead of trying to put it in as an image. You can also go through and look at how other publishers have handled mathematical content with SVG and other XML-based options. I do suggest if you're in that space that you look at what Hindawi Publishers has done. Hindawi has a variety of different very complex mathematical books available for free in EPUB from their website, and they handle most of it as SVG, as scalable vector graphics, which is a very interesting XML format that is supported in EPUB and on most devices. So it's a good option. I think that Hindawi is spelled Hindawi. You can do a search for them on Google and come up with their website very easily.
What should authors be aware of regarding the ongoing software upkeep required for ebooks? Or do sellers like Amazon automatically update new ebook formatting of the books sold?
Most of the retailers are not going to go back and update every book. We saw this recently when Amazon announced their support for page numbers. They went back to the top 1,000 or a couple thousand books in their list and ran through an automated system and created the page number linking and stuff for them and then launched it, because they wanted to make a big deal and say, hey, we now have page numbers, and here's all these books in the top 1,000 or whatever that have it. Then at the same time, they updated their software that you use when you're creating your own Kindle files so that you could add page numbers yourself. And I think that's the standard we've seen so far, is that most of the time they're not going to fix your book for you. They're going to give you the tools to do it. Or they're going to say, hey, you need to go do this, and maybe not even give you the tools, but tell you that you have to do it yourself. The good thing is that the ebook formats are not changing. Made 2 years ago is still very good as a Kindle book. It still works. It still has all the same functions, and for the most part, there's nothing that's changed major in that format specifically. And even with EPUB, let's say you make an EPUB 2 file right now, and EPUB 3 gets released next week and starts to get implemented by the different retailers. Even though EPUB 3 is out there, that doesn't mean that EPUB 2 will stop being supported or that your EPUB 2 file is bad or wrong. You can go back and update it, and that's one of the things that we offer as solutions to our clients is, hey, we can go back and update those files for you if we need to. If you have a need to go to the next version of the EPUB format or something new changes, and we want to make the book better. But the retailers themselves are not likely to do that, and they haven't been doing it so far.
Okay, there are several questions about ebook royalties. Joshua, do you have expertise in that area?
Yeah, I mean, I'm an author myself, and also I talk to a lot of authors and publishers about these issues and keep up to date on them, so I'll try.
Well, throw some out then. One is, what kind of royalties for the ebook author, what kind of royalties for an ebook should an author demand from the publisher?
Most publishers are going to have a standard royalty rate. Demanding anything from them is going to be very difficult, and especially with ebooks, because a lot of publishers are seeing ebooks as the evil empire. Almost. It's very difficult for publishers to give you more than 25%, because there's a mental block there that says, this is taking away our print sales. We're not making as much money on each sale, so we have to make up for it somehow. And so giving away 50% of ebook sales back to the author as a royalty is not something most publishers want to do. There are other publishers out there, though. If you're looking for a good publisher, I would suggest that you shop around a little bit. Find publishers that, if you have the ability. I mean, obviously that's difficult sometimes, especially with so much content floating around. Or if you're really concerned about it, then go and do a self-publishing run instead of trying to get a publisher to give you more money or give you a better royalty. Self-publishing is a lot easier today than it used to be, and it is possible to do it. You have to do a lot of legwork and a lot of the work that your publisher would have done for you, but it is possible to do that yourself and make more money in the long run.
So if you're signing up a book with a publisher, should the royalty rate for the book form, the print book form, and the ebook be the same, more or less?
In most cases, it's going to be a standard royalty rate for the whole thing. Let's say you get an advance, which most time advances are very small nowadays, you'll probably get the same royalty rate for your print books and your ebooks. In some cases, publishers are seeing that their ebooks are they're able to create the ebooks more easily or something, so they're saying, okay, we'll give you 25%. And in most cases, they're not giving more than 25%, but 50% can happen sometimes. And that's going to be different than obviously your print, where you're making maybe 10. Okay,
different question. Which technology do you think will survive the next 5 years?
It's a little bit of a broad question. I assume that the discussion is a question of the formats.
Mm-hmm.
EPUB will definitely surpass Kindle eventually. When it comes down to it, Amazon's formatting limitations are going to come back to bite them, and probably in the next 5 years, I would say that's going to happen. The big thing we get this question a lot about, when will Amazon switch and start using EPUB? And my typical response is, well, whenever they stop making enough money to have their own format. It's very cost effective for them to have a proprietary format. It keeps them in their own world essentially. And so I don't see them changing that. But EPUB is a good format, and it's changing itself very rapidly. So as it increases its quality and as the other devices start to surpass the capabilities of Kindle books, then we'll probably see eventually Amazon start to support EPUB. Now, they'll probably have their own DRM. They'll lock it down and make it proprietary somehow, but they probably will support the format eventually.
What are your thoughts on indexing for ebooks?
I am a huge advocate for indexing in ebooks. Matter of fact, I'm one of the keynote speakers at the Association of Indexers, American Society for Indexing this month. Indexes are an integral part of any kind of nonfiction content, and most of the time when publishers are going to ebook formats, they say, oh, well, you can search the book, so you don't need an index. But that's not true, because an index is so much more than that. It is important that we have indexes that list out the subject matter of the book or places where things are found, and having that linking between different pieces of information. If I'm reading a book that's a biography of presidents, I don't want to just do a search for Roosevelt or Teddy and come up with 30 different hits when I'm looking for something specific about Teddy Roosevelt. It's very difficult to use a book if all you can do is search, and I think that there are many ways that indexes can be enhanced and used even better in ebook formats. So yes, I'm a big advocate for it. It's not difficult to link an index, and actually if you're building an EPUB file correctly, an index is actually even that much easier to link to the page numbers. And so I do support that. I think it's a great feature, very important feature of ebooks.
A follow-up question on indexing. Will EPUB 3 allow indexes to be included and functional?
Yes, it will, and EPUB 2 already does. So there's no change in that really. It's we anytime we do an ebook development, in ebook design here, we always include the index and link it. So it's already possible in the EPUB format.
All right. When a student orders a digital textbook from CourseSmart, what format is used?
CourseSmart is probably using PDF right now. More than likely they'll move to EPUB as more textbook publishers move to it. But most textbook publishers are using PDF right now.
All right.
And the reason for that is that the textbook publishers are very committed to design quality and fidelity, and they don't like EPUB because you can't do the same things with it that you can do in print and PDF.
Okay. Another question about royalties. For long-time authors, someone who's in the 6th edition or more is getting the same royalty rate for ebooks as print, par for the course?
Yeah, pretty much. Like I said, a lot of publishers don't like giving higher royalties for ebooks, partially because they see them as taking so much of their, or cannibalizing their print sales. If you're at that stage of your contract, you might see if you can get out of your contract and sell the ebooks yourself. And get more that way. If you're in the long tail, your publisher might let you out of the contract.
Okay, I think we have time for one more question, and it is, what are some sources for ebooks in French, German, and Spanish?
There are lots of smaller ebook retailers popping up in foreign countries, other countries besides the U.S. I would suggest that you look in those countries directly and see if you can see. If you're looking for French books, I've heard that there's the French government is taking an active interest in French content. I can't speak to any specific stores right now, just off the top of my head, that sell content in those languages. You might also check out teleread.org. Teleread is an ebook blog that's got constant content coming in and news coming in from all over the world. And regularly they'll have an article about the state of ebooks in Brazil or the state of ebooks in France or whatever, written by someone in the country who is engaged in those issues. And just to throw, since that was the last question, I'll throw in a little plug here. Every week we do, here at Ebook Architects, we do a podcast called Ebook Ninjas, and we cover topics and issues in the ebook world. We cover news and things that are going on in the ebook world. You can find that podcast at ebookninjas.com, or you can find it on iTunes.
All right. Thank you, Joshua. I think we're out of time for today. Thank you for sharing your expertise with us, and thank you all for participating in today's webinar. You'll receive a follow-up email that includes a short survey about your experience today. Please take a moment to complete the survey. Your responses will help us improve future webinars. Ebooks, an Overview, is an educational presentation brought to you by the Text and Academic Authors Association. For more TAA educational offerings, go to www.taaonline.net/TAA teleconferences. Goodbye, everyone. Have a great rest of the day.